having great food and friendship. We have several guests today. So if you'll just stand and introduce your guest. Matt Shervat has a guest today.
This is Sean Coleman. He's the president and CEO for Mint.
And Sean has turned in his application. And Joni has a guest. Welcome, Roger. Stan, is there another one over there? Oh, yes. We have a guest, Paul Holmes, has an announcement, has a district announcement to make.
Come. I'm down on the list. I thought I'd mind Cedar Club today. September 22nd, district golf tournament at St. Andrews in Overland Park. Part of the district conference, $80 a team, and everybody will play. It's really cool. And I'll be here and
thanks. Paul, for those of you that are listening later, Paul was plugging the district golf tournament. You can go to 5710's website and sign up. Cup money this month is for Seaman Community Resource Center supplies for students at Logan Elementary. So dig deep. The district conference is at the Hyatt Place at Lenexa City Center. I believe Vince, Lanessa, and I are already signed up. So go to District 5710 to sign up. If you sign up by the end of the month, there's a discount for your fee. Roger Eshelman is forming a Polio Plus team to include a Pints for Polio event. So please contact Roger at 785-267-8782. He's out of town on business today, but I told him I'd make his announcement. We have several new members in the pipeline. Just added Sean, but we also have Monique Vopet from Harvesters and Blake Sutton from Invista that are in their 10-day comment period and will be voted on the board in another week or two. We're really building momentum as a service club. The zoo is looking for volunteers on Friday mornings to help string zoo lights. If you'd like to grab a couple Rotarians and help string zoo lights, Fawn Moser is the contact for that. We have been invited by the Kansas River Keeper, Kim Bellamere, who was a guest of ours last year, and got us to the point where we've adopted the Seward boat ramp. They're planning a major sandbar cleanup just downriver from the Seward boat ramp on October 15th. And she contacted us to see if we would be interested in gathering more volunteers for that event and possibly serving lunch. And I reached out to a few of us that are regularly at the boat ramp, and David Beck replied that he was in and had 38 hot dogs left over from the youth exchange. So we're on our way to serving hot dogs to the crew that month. So if you're interested in participating on October 15th, that's a Saturday, let me or Lee know, and we'll get you on that list, and we'll have some more organizational process to go getting ready for that. Oh, I'm sorry. That will also include the Evergy Green Team and the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Major sandbar cleanup. And that's my announcement, so I'm going to turn it over to Zach, who's going to introduce our fine. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. We've started Fun Bucks. Fun bucks, $5 for a personal announcement, $20 for a corporate or organizational announcement. These are funds that are going into the club's coffers because we're on a bare bones budget. And if we're going to do more and more of these activities, we've got to have some funds to do it. So anybody with a dick, with an announcement, come forward.
I have a few questions. Number one is, do I have to pay extra to stand behind the microphone?
No.
Okay.
But you have to pay.
I will pay. You can decide how much, because I have three things. Number one, Anita Woolgast is in the hospital. I don't know if you know that, but she's recovering. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but my wife visited her today, and she appears to be doing well.
No charge.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Number two, this is kind of the bully pulpit, so I get to call out some people. And the first one I'm going to call is my brother, who is the only hawker. Yeah, I know. He's the only hawker in the family of K-Staters. And I just wanted to remind him that the football season starts a week from Saturday. And at least one national pundit has picked K-State to win the conference. So
we're down one because I'm sure no one picked us.
Well, interestingly, the guy that picked K-State to finish first picked KU not to finish last.
Sounds like a homer to me.
Okay. The only other thing I want to say, I want to call out Roger Underwood, who is sitting in my seat. How much does that cost? 10. 10.
It didn't occur to me to bring flyers for my event, but first I want to say that I was on the Capitol Paddle on Saturday, and we went from the Weir to Seward Boat Ramp, and the Seward Boat Ramp looks awesome. If you've been there before when it was so ragged and overgrown and trashed, you just wouldn't believe it's the same place. So way to go, good work. And if I have to pay an extra $5 to say that, it's all right. My announcement is that many of you are involved in Topeka United or Mosaic Partner Pairs program, but tomorrow night is their annual Get Down in T-Town music event at the Brown v. Board mural. It runs from 5:30 to 9:30. Bring your lawn chairs and your blanket and make yourself comfortable. Stay as long as you want. Oleander and Flavor Wagon will be the two food trucks. Headliners will be Paradise Band, which most people are familiar with, Cleveland Blue, and the newly returned Roger Ortega, as well as a lot of local up-and-coming talent in between those headliners. It's really going to be a great time, and I encourage everybody to come and join us.
Thank you. Don't forget to pay. I think Karen is one of the reasons that it's so valuable to belong to this club. Anybody else? Okay, I'll turn it over to Zach.
All right. Thank you, President Steve. So I'm excited about our presentation today. I've invited our State Treasurer, Lynn Rogers, to share a little bit more about what our State Treasurer does. It's a constitutional position. It really became more meaningful to me in two ways recently. We've got 3 kiddos that are all on to college. The 529 state plan through the Treasurer's office helped pay for my MBA through Pitt State. And I think there was one girl that was in the room, but I don't think they're here. Nope, because with the degree from Pitt State, I mean, they're probably off, solving so many of the great world issues right now. So the second way is through my work at Capper Foundation, realizing the impact that the ABLE accounts make for the adults that we support with an intellectual and physical disability. And so we have become very close to the good work of their office. And so I thought Lynn would come and share a little bit more about what a state treasurer does. I do want to share a little bit about his background as we introduce him. He is our 41st state treasurer. He assumed that role January 4th of 21. Professionally, he's a businessman, a former state senator, and was on the Wichita Board of Education and served as president in that capacity. He had a career and experience in banking, wearing a lot of different hats in that role. And in 2001, Lynn was elected to the Wichita School Board, working on behalf of children and families. He served in various leadership roles in the community as well. In 2016, he was elected to the Kansas Senate, representing the 25th Senate District, which is basically Wichita, from 2017 to 2019. And during his time in the Senate, he was the ranking member of the Financial Institution and Insurance Committee, as well as he served on the Federal State Affairs Senate Committee on Agriculture. He served as our Lieutenant Governor of Kansas from 2019 to 2021 and was head of the Office of Rural Prosperity. And so many hats that led him into this role. And so I'm pleased to introduce to you our state treasurer, Mr. Lynn Rogers. Lynn?
Thank you very much. And it's a privilege to be here, particularly to see so many friends. I always like to take the first thing, the elephant in the room. Everybody asks, why did you give up being lieutenant governor? It's such an exciting job for the state treasurer. And I loved being the lieutenant governor. I got to travel all over the state and talk to Kansans and farmers and ranchers, just like I did in my banking job. But when the governor asked me to be the treasurer, one of the things I discovered about the job is that I get the opportunity to count $20 billion a year. And as a former bank teller, that was just too much fun to pass up. It was going to be too exciting. So, but this is a job that really fits my skill set. And I want to talk to you about what we do as a state treasurer. Many of you may not even know what the state treasurer does or have ever worried about it. A little background on me. I grew up on a farm in Nebraska. My first job was watering and feeding the hogs. We had about 400 hogs. My first paying job was I walked soybeans for 50 cents an hour. And boy, I thought that was big money because we worked all summer and never had time to spend it. So, it actually kind of accumulated. We sold sweet corn on the side of the road. And I went to the University of Nebraska to get my finance degree, which is where I met my wife. And then we moved to Chicago, and I was a banker with Citibank for about 4 years, and then got recruited to come back and work for the Federal Land Bank. And when I got to Kansas, interest rates back in the mid-'80s was almost 15, 16%, if you remember. It was a variable rate loan. And so my first job was developing what we called the adjustable and fixed rate mortgages for farmers and ranchers. So they had some control on what they did. I then moved over to the leasing portion of farm credit leasing. So I traveled all over Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and New Mexico, leased ag equipment. My first spray rig that I did for somebody was $150,000. The last one was $480,000. So in a 15-year period, just how much that had gone up. We did a lot of buildings, facilities, and things like that. And apologies to my staff, when we travel around the state, I'll often point those out. And they, like my kids, have gotten over that. It's no longer an exciting thing. I still get excited every time I see it. So, well, what does the state treasurer do? In essence, I'm the state banker. So there's several services that we provide. You may have heard of us with unclaimed property. Have any of you heard unclaimed property? All right. Well, if you've got your phones out and you want to look up that website and you're looking down, that does not bother me in these presentations. So you can put in your browser kansascash.ks.gov. And I had my staff look at some of your websites, and they found a couple names. And Marie, you have almost $100 with us. So we need to get that signed up. I'll give you the shouldn't have said the amount. I'm so sorry. But, I try to get out and do functions where we talk to people and tell them about it, because so many people don't realize that we have this money. It could be a bank account that was abandoned or forgotten about. It can be a rebate check. We have a lot of Walmart and Walgreens rebate checks. You didn't even know that they didn't come. Sometimes it's a final paycheck. You get insurance or a refund of what you paid for insurance, or maybe it's vacation pay and you've moved and you don't even know that you have it. So lots of different things. We also have safe deposit boxes. And that's probably one of the hardest parts of the job, because oftentimes they're family heirlooms. And we do hold those for a few years to try to find people. We also get military medals. And before we would sell those after a couple of years, we have stopped that. We now have a special page on our website that just has military medals, and because we think those really belong with family and they should stay together. So we're doing everything we can. We're reaching out to American Legion and VFW Post to see if we can locate those people. So we'd appreciate if you look at that list and see if you know anybody that we might be able to get those home. We've had some interesting things left in safe deposit boxes. Let's put it that way. There are some that even have human remains that we have gotten. So those are interesting to try to find the heirs for that. But we also, as we've done these coffees and events, we do a booth every year at the state fair. So if you're there, you can stop in and they can look up your name. We were in a small coffee shop in Lyons, and an older man came in, and I looked his name up, and we didn't have anything. And so he says, well, look my wife's name up. She died a few years ago. And I looked it up, $300,000 of life insurance policies that he did not know existed. And they would have been mailed to his home under her name, and the post office didn't deliver them because she was deceased. And so that's why it went back to the owner. But we see and hear those kinds of stories all over. So we really want to get that back to people as much as we can. I actually, when I started, I looked up every legislator, and we found almost $8,000 for about 40 of our legislators, and including 3 of the previous governors. And so I've called all of those people. One of the hardest parts of my job sometimes is calling people. We had a business in Fort Scott, and I looked them up. They had about 15,000. I had to call them about 8 times before they believed I really was the state treasurer and not a prince from Africa that was trying to scam them. So I would say if you get letters from the state treasurer, you'll see those. Our logo will be on them. There should be a phone number on there that you can look up and see if it's official. And the other thing is, if you go to our website, kansascash.ks.gov, we never charge for you to find unclaimed property. If you go to a site, and oftentimes it'll have my picture on it, they'll try to spoof them and make them look exactly the same. And if they're charging you a fee, you're not on the right site. So make sure you tell people that there's never a fee for that. Also, don't forget to look up business names or nonprofits. We recently returned about $19,000 to Red Cross. We've returned almost $22,000 to the city of Wichita, $12,000 to actually about $100,000 now to school districts around the state, and a number of counties we've found money for. So you can look those up different ways, and oftentimes it'll come in different names or spellings. So like, for instance, Wichita Public Schools, which I was on the board for 16 years, we had it under about 22 different names. So it's USD 259 schools, Wichita Public Schools. So you can look it up a number of different ways. And if there are multiples, our staff can work with you, and you can just fill out one form and not have to do multiples. Well, if I can't give you back money, what's the next best thing? A tax deduction, right? Well, that's our 529 Learning Quest accounts. We have almost $10 billion in savings for Kansans, almost 275,000 accounts. We've had about a 33% increase in those in the last year and a half. So we've been out promoting those and talking about them. You can put up to $16,000 a year into those accounts for your children or your grandchildren. You get a $3,000 Kansas income tax per person, $6,000 for a couple, and that can reduce your Kansas income taxes. But what's really good about that is that you can choose how you want to invest it, where and what type of an account you want to put it into. We work with American Century out of Kansas City, and you can invest very aggressive, or we have some that if the child is going to graduate in 15 years, there's a way to plan for that. Those have expanded in the last year or so too. A lot of people didn't know about it, but you can use them for vocational schools, for 2-year schools, 4-year. It's not just for a 4-year degree. You can also use it for a union apprenticeship. So there's a lot of things. You can also pay back up to $10,000 of student debt from those accounts. And so we're seeing adults open those if they have their bachelor's. Oftentimes, if they're going back for their master's or their doctorate, they can put that in, get the tax deduction and tax-free earnings until they're ready to pay the tuition. And part of our education programs, we also have something called Scholarship. And this is a database of 6 million scholarships for over $30 billion. So this is a great time if you have a junior or a senior in high school. They can go into our website, create an identity account in this form. Excuse me. It's part of Sally Mae, a partner that we partner with them, and you put in information about yourself. Did you participate in certain sports or certain extracurricular activities? And then it'll do a search of this database and see which scholarships you might qualify for. And then it'll give you a date that you have to apply for, and what are the qualifications and then what are the requirements. So if you have to write an essay or if you have to do something along those lines. The other educational program we have, and Zach mentioned it, is the ABLE, Building a Better Life Experience. And this is an account for Kansans that are living with a disability. If you're on Medicare or Social Security benefits, you can have only $2,000 saved up before you lose eligibility. The ABLE account was actually started back in 2014, very bipartisan in the legislature. I'm not sure if anybody voted against it, but it allowed Kansans with a disability to put up to $100,000 without losing that eligibility. Now, the limitation on that at the time was that you had to open it by conservatorship or guardianship. So it did limit who that was. One of the last things that the Trump administration, IRS, did was change those rules to open that up a little bit more to include parents, grandparents, and siblings of folks with a disability. And so that happened about a year before I became treasurer, and we discovered that we needed to get that implemented by November of this year. And so we were able to take that to the legislature and get that law changed and get that expanded. So that was very beneficial. Now anyone, and we've had a huge increase just since July 1 with those types of accounts. So if you're interested, again, click on that button that says the ABLE account. We're working with a lot of organizations that have disabilities, medically fragile individuals. Right now, that law only allows people that to qualify for that if they've had the disability before the age of 26. Our own Senator Moran is sponsoring legislation in the U.S. Senate. It is passed out of committee to make that age 46, which we think is going to be very beneficial, particularly with adults that end up with brain injuries or veterans. We think those will be really, really great things from that standpoint. The other things that we do, we issue all the bonds for cities, counties, and school districts when they're doing a major project. We have a bond counselor that we work with and make sure that those get issued. We make sure that those payments get made every year. Excuse me. We also make sure that all of the tax revenues that come into the Department of Revenue, and I'm really quick to say too, I don't collect the taxes, I just send the money out. That's part of the fun job. So thank you. So I don't have to worry about, somebody says they don't want to look their name up on unclaimed property because they may, I said, I don't worry about that. That's somebody else's problem. But we do want to get the money back to you if it's yours. But we also do every day we go in and balance all the checking accounts for the state of Kansas. We work with state agencies to make sure that their checks clear. If there's any questions, we make sure we work with them and the vendors to make sure that's done. So, and you'll be glad to know that even though I like the concept of counting 20 billion in cash, we don't have cash in the office. And they don't let me in the vault very often, so we're very safe. What I'd like to see us do in the state treasurer's office, if you look as I've talked with Kansans as I travel around, there are certain things that are very important to them. Saving for education, of course, is key. Saving for retirement is key. Saving for housing. We don't have a retirement program that's for individuals other than your capers, which if you're a state employee or first responders, that's a great program. But 55% of Kansans have no money saved for retirement. And those that do, the average is only about $20,000, which if you think about that, that's not going to last very long. So we have a crisis on our hands, and we've got to figure out a way to make that better. And several treasurers from around the country have implemented what's called a work and save. It's kind of a brain child of the AARP. How do we create a retirement program that anyone can use? So if you're working 2 or 3 jobs, you can put money into this account. We would have every business that could qualify, could participate. There'd be no cost or risk to them. Most small businesses don't really want to run a retirement program or 401k. They take some fiduciary responsibility. Here they can pass that away. Or, the way what happens in a lot of states is if you don't want to use the state program, you just have to signify that you're using a private either a commercial bank or some kind of investment firm for that. But we see in Oregon, for instance, over $100 million has been saved just in a couple years for their residents. It averages almost $1,300 after a year. They're not big money. These are people that have no money saved at all. And so we see that as an opportunity. We'd have to go to the legislature to get that approved, but we'd like to see that happen. We also want to see what we can do on housing. When I was lieutenant governor, we did the first housing study statewide, county by county, in 35 years. I think the last one was during Joan Finney's administration. And what we discovered was that the average home in most rural counties in Kansas were built in 1948. So we have a housing issue. And again, if you look back at even in 2008, we were building nationwide 2 million homes a year. That after the downturn of the economy, that dropped to about 600,000. What that did was, one, take a lot of housing out of the housing stock, but even worse, it made a lot of folks that were in that industry no longer working in that industry. And many schools, we couldn't get kids, younger people, to even train to be a builder, to be a plumber, to be some of those trades. And so we've got to get that turned around and figure out how we can do it. The legislature passed a housing savings account program for commercial banks. That hasn't been implemented yet. The Department of Revenue, we're still waiting on regs, but we're watching that to make sure that gets happened. I also serve on the CAPERS board and the PMIB, the Pooled Money Investment Board. That's where we invest the idle dollars for the state of Kansas. And we make sure that we make as much on that as we can. And then CAPERS, I'm one of 9 trustees that serve on the CAPERS board, and we are moving that in the right direction as well. So I do tend to keep very busy. I am a part-time resident of your city. I commute up to Topeka most every Sunday afternoon, and we have an apartment in the Kansan Hotel up on the 10th floor, and I usually stay till about Friday, and then I go home to Wichita. I live in the Riverside neighborhood, which is downtown, and it's an older house. I'm still currently on project probation. I cannot start another project until I get one done. And right now I can't get a lot done. So it makes it really well. So, but I do tell staff I want to get home often enough to at least mow the grass. So we try to do that. But I've really appreciated the opportunity to be here in Topeka and meet so many great people. Been to the zoo and the Discovery Center and Capper. And so we've tried to participate as much as we can. Frank, how long have we known each other? How long have you been on the board?
15 years.
50, yeah, a couple years before that. I beat you a couple years before that, but we knew through KASB, and so we've really, I really enjoy being the state treasurer. There's a lot of things that we can do to help people, and I guess my overall philosophy is I really don't plan to run for anything else. I really like this job, and I think there's a lot of really good things the treasurer can do if we focus on people. And that's what I want to, be known for, and what we can do. So I think we've got a little bit of time. If there's any questions that anybody has. Does anybody else look their name up in kansascash.ks.gov? I've got to get that in about 4 more times. So yeah. Oh, nothing. Okay. All right. Well, what's that? Yeah. You can do $16,000 a year per person. So you could do 16, your spouse could do 16 as well. You can only take $3,000 off your Kansas taxes. There's not a federal deduction, but all the earnings are tax-free until you pull them out. And if you use it on tuition, fees, or even housing, then you don't pay any tax on that as well. So, when I started saving for my kids, they weren't able, we didn't have them. And so, I paid a lot of tax on those savings over that period of time. So it's not a maximum amount over time. No. Well, I believe there is. It's maybe 425,000. So it's a pretty good sized chunk. So yeah. And there are multiple states that offer 529s. We have one through Learning Quest. You can get them through other states. They're not as good as ours, but you make your own investment decisions to make sure what's best for you.
Yeah, what kind of proof do you need to claim some of this unclaimed property?
There are some that you can claim right online. We just identify who you are. If it's an old address, there's times where we might ask for something that might have been at that address. If it's over 2,000 right now, we're going to bump that up here pretty soon. Then I think you have to have your signature notarized. If it's an estate, because sometimes you'll see money for your grandparents or something like that. Typically on that, we'll need either a death certificate or an obituary or something from the paper. And then there's a form that you fill out that the estate is under 40,000 and an affidavit, but staff can walk you through that and help you in that regard. So we have unclaimed property never goes away. We have transactions. We have about 400 million total in those accounts right now. We get anywhere from 40 to 50 million a year. Last year we paid out about 35 million. So and then the excess goes back to the state general fund and stays there until, as a state, we're always obligated. People have said, well, can I donate it? And it takes the same legal guidelines to claim it that way than it does for just getting it yourself. But our staff, we've got a group of 4 customer service reps that will work with you to do everything we can to make it easy. If there are 3 heirs, we'll split the money equally between each of the heirs. Where it starts getting difficult is when one of the heirs is gone and they've got a couple different folks. But again, we can work with all of you on that. So good. Yeah.
Papers, invest for American Century as well, so that we will use the 5 minutes.
No, they don't. I don't believe they have any investments with American Century. The Capers has several different funds. We've got our public traded equities, and then we have about 15% of that portfolio can be in private equity and real estate. And so we have some funds in some of those. We have the Capers has its own investment staff, and then we also have benchmark organizations that will look at what they would say, if you're in a normal market, this is what your percentage should be. And then our goal at the board is that we exceed that. So if the market says we should make 4%, we want to make sure that we make more than 4%, but at the same time protect our assets. It's about a $28 billion fund right now. And what's interesting is what a lot of people don't realize is the beneficiaries receive about $1.8 billion a year in their annual or monthly checks. So that's a big element or a big part of our Kansas economy, particularly in some of our rural communities. We have a huge number of those are our school teachers, and some of those folks are in their 90s and they're still collecting checks, but that really helps the Kansas economy as well. So it's a big chunk. I've been very impressed with the investment staff. We just lost our chief investment officer. She retired, but we've had two really good years. This year is not quite as good because of the market. So you have the good years, you have the bad years, but we've worked very hard to maintain that as much as we can. Good. Well, thank you all for allowing me to be here. We'll be here a little longer to visit with anybody if you've got questions. And if you found your name and want to know the dollar amount, we can look it up on my phone, and we'll be there. And if you see me out and about doing unclaimed property, stop and say hello. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for a great program, and I'll be sure and look that up when I get home. We are donating a book to the Ross Elementary Library that our treasurer has signed. Next week's program is the humanitarian work in the Philippines by Rotarian Keith and his wife, Pat Hooper. I got several calendar dates wrong last week, so please forget what I said last week. Be sure to put October 13th on your calendar. That is when PARS will be presenting on our current Topeka Rotary Foundation signature project. If you forgot to sign in, please sign out on your way out. If you're bringing extra guests, be sure and let Vince know in advance so we can make sure everybody has a meal. Yes, Lee?
And we will vegetables over that corner instead of over here. Don't it's not there.
There's lots of vegetables from Lee's garden, probably picked by Sue. So help yourself on your way out. So let's stand for the four-way test. Things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you all.